What is up? What is up? Welcome back to Beerfield Fantasy Football. I am your host, at Hot BFF, Chris Hopper. As always, joined by Thury BFF, Dan Thury. Exhale, everybody. The fantasy football over. What's up, Colton? Fantasy football season's over. Hopefully, you all had a lot of success. The NFL season's over. After a high-scoring and wild Week 17. We'll talk about the Eagles because I think we're obligated to. Because everybody's got takes, so why should we be any different? Yeah, we got all the Black Monday fallout for you today. We got a full wild card preview and the 20 Fuelies. So our imaginary year-end awards.
Guys, all these players will get plaques, decorative glasses.
It's actually plaque on there. And the decorative glasses are leftover New Year glasses we got for off the Walgreens.
Right.
Now, a lot of cool stuff coming up for you in the offseason, though. Just to take a chance to preview that real quick. We've got look-backs on the last 3 years draft classes plus the got probably my it'll out in a minute. Got other stuff, lots of other stuff. Ryan McNamara should be joining us and I think to talk 20. Got back to me today, so we'll start pulling some guests through. I have.
We're getting Nick back on. Got to get Nick on for the. That's the final class.
Yep, we'll get Nick on for.
Like he has.
Put Nick on for one. Go through all that. We'll have your full draft prep. Other cool stuff coming too. We got something. Launch some. Dan and I still got to sit down and talk about all that and final it out and hammer it out. But act with that. Two ways, quite frankly, to get information. So I'm super excited about that because it also allows us to do a little less and all about doing a little less. That being said, without further talk about what of Ball Blast. That's awesome. Yeah, we'd like to get them back on too. We've got some Busch Light bets to pay up with them, actually. So
we do.
We'll have
I
to
kept
get
the receipts.
We'll have to get them back on to do that because I know that I got to chug some beer because of Keyshawn.
You, me, and I think it's you, me, and Kate.
Michelle's victory tapping that one, so we're gonna have to hang out and drink some Busch Lights. We'll get them on at some point. They were a ton of fun. Matt Hicks, we'll get him on. Another one of our favorites. We'll get Miguel on around rookie time. Familiar faces and hopefully some.
What's fueling beer for you?
All right, Dan, you got something special. I got something not special to me. Put it that way.
Yeah, so it's the Fuelies. It's the kind of cap. Putting on the cap to you're doing urban counties. This is here out with Earl Grey tea.
Oh, the Kentucky Fog.
Kentucky Fog.
It's by far the most divisive.
It is massively divisive. It's South Asian bourbon barrel, obviously. It's grey tea, black tea, and honey. Run this later. May not get through this. Nope.
It's hard to do.
Get too, and black tea, twice from the not a chug.
Sure. All right, I'd say special to me because a lot of you that know, Cryptic was favorite brewery. Sorry, switching gears. My favorite brewery. When I came down to St. Louis, I couldn't get it. My favorite brewery when I lived back in Spring. Couldn't get it when I got down. Then all of a sudden, Dank Me started popping up. A couple places had really danked me in my app. And all of a sudden, within the last couple weeks, we started getting some of the thing about Triptych down here versus Triptych back home. Triptych back home, you don't get a chance to get their special. They're gone about the second. Still the case?
Yeah. So one thing that 20, I guess more COVID what it.
So they ramped up
They ramped up production. Ramp up production. Why you're seeing why Springfield Chicago Brew. Also meaning they're just being able to provide more coverage.
Yeah,
we're not getting like there's stuff that no one will get. That's just more of their tap room stuff. So their barrel age program we AJ, the AJ program AJ, but definitely is seeing more stock. I'm really glad that they're putting. I don't see a lot of changing once everything kind of goes back to normal. Also, expect Yingling in late 2021. Yay! I cannot fucking wait for that.
Oh, Yingling to come up here?
Yeah. So they reached a partnership with.
Oh, it was
with Bush.
That's what it was. I remember seeing that to distribute with a wider footprint.
Yeah, so it sounds like because Illinois is the first state that they'll be newly entering. It sounds like us down here in Springfield.
Cool.
That could change, but yeah, there's a good chance they're going to be all 50, all 480, 48 continental.
480. All 480 states.
All 480 states.
Anyway, back to Triptych.
Yeah.
So, started thanks to COVID, I guess. And that makes sense because you don't have to really stock the tap room with as many kegs because you don't have people in there. Restaurant orders are going to be down on kegs because you're there. So, we started to get more of their special releases down here. So, I got some things actually that I hadn't seen. Didn't even know existed because I've been so unplugged. So, this particular one is called Banana for Scale. It is a IPA brewed with white wheat, cashmere, citra, and Sabro hops. I can tell you the aromas on this are strong. Like I was holding it at arm's length when I first cracked it and poured it, and it was like I let out an audible "holy shit" because it just hop aroma just hit me in the face.
That's got to be fresh too.
Arm's length away. Yeah, no, it was it was on the new shelf at Randall's down here. Randall's has the best beer selection down here, by the way, in case you were curious.
I am.
So yeah, more on that midway through the show. Let's go ahead and get in.
News.
All right. So Eagles, there's definitely some things we got to talk about here. A lot of controversy coming out of the Sunday night game. And I don't know that the NFL could have done anything to avoid it because the Eagles knew coming in that they had nothing to play for. Not a situation where if you had put this game at 3:25 when the Giants and Cowboys were playing, like the Eagles would have done much differently or done anything different because they don't care which one of them is screwing over. But for those that have been living under a rock, Doug Peterson pulls Jalen Hurts. Nate Sudfeld comes in, fumbles, throws an interception, and then still have a chance to win the game and seemingly intentionally offside to essentially steal the NFC Washington football team. Giants players obviously pissed because that they beat Dallas. They had a chance to get in if the Eagles would have won. They feel like they threw the game. Fans, probably the only ones defending this because they realize that now they have a pick that's 3 slots higher in the draft because they didn't go out and win this. And apparently some of the Eagles players were not thrilled with this either. 2 defensive players had to be held back after Peterson decided to bench Hurts and are not happy with his decision to essentially quit on his team. They had winning. Peterson going to be back as of right now. So what do we see from this going forward from the NFL, from the Eagles, if anything? And does this leave a stain, or is this just something we're not talking about in a week and a half?
I mean, we know tanking is teams are pretty good for the catchers, crashing decision. This one, benching of Hurts really made no sense to the entire game. They're down 3. Well, Hurts was definitely struggling as a passer. He's had 2 touchdowns.
Rushing touchdowns.
I think the worst part is that Peterson came out basically had 2 different. Right away, it was wanted to give Nate reps in. Fucking meaningless. Late into the game, want to help to protect what is potentially your franchise. Then the next day, which I came out and said it was because Jalen struggling. No one in their right fucking mind leave you that Nate Sudfeld gave you a better chance to win.
Yeah, this isn't a Tua Ryan Fitzpatrick situation.
Exactly. This is your second round pick versus a journeyman quarterback who has been fucking useless.
Yeah, and you've had him around with a chance. So, I don't know that anything comes out of this. I think that the organization is probably fine with it because of, again, draft capital.
It's the backlash from the play.
It's the locker room. It's going to be, do players want to come? As the Eagles try to rebuild, do players want to come play for Doug Peterson after the stunt he pulled? That's going to be the big impact in free agency and the way the players. The NFL is not going to do it. I don't know that they can.
Oh, God, no.
They can't.
I don't think they can.
And there's nothing the NFL could have done to prevent it either.
Miles Sanders also came radio interview and basically just frustration. Yeah. I think it's more or less who knows? Like I can't imagine this with Peterson's. I think this came down by Rosa. I think that it wasn't just Peterson going. Find out more.
Yeah, I would agree. We might not. Ultimately, I think this is something the internet's done talking about here in a week and a half. As the playoffs roll, there's going to be other things. NFL stands for not for long, as in we don't even stay hung up on a story for long. But I think
it takes a day for a certain play. Stop talking.
Yeah, I think players are going to remember this though.
I do,
and I think it's going to impact some of what Philly's able to do.
I think, that's the underrated. The really raging class. A lot could have fortune, career changes with from the offensive side. Philly just put forth their environment is highly negative.
Yeah,
and it's a very toxic locker room, like you said. That made.
Yeah, it's not the culture you want. Dolphins GM Chris Greer committed to Tua going forward as starting quarterback. That's the right decision. We knew it wasn't Fitzpatrick. We've talked on this show about Brian Flores and the way that he handled that quarterback situation, and really, they won games. Both quarterbacks seemed to be okay with it. In some ways you protected Tua, in some ways it might have stunted him. But going in saying that you're our guy next year, for a second-year player that did look like a rookie at times and did look pretty good at times. They've got good pieces on that defense. They have room to build a little bit around him on offense. But I think the Dolphins are set up for, a couple of years of sustained success.
Yeah, they have that top 3 pick is huge.
I have two top 3 first round picks.
Yeah, they have 2. Yeah, absolutely. They have pick 3 and pick 13.
Yeah, sorry,
pick 3.
3 and something. They have 2.
No,
first,
3 and 17. That
yeah,
pick 3, pick 17.
So 2.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say 2 top 20 picks.
Yeah, it's a lot they can do, too, but obviously still coming back from the hip injury. That Miami being obviously focus of. We'll get more into the prospects. I do believe that Fields and Lawrence are better prospects than Tua, but not enough to make that type of shift already. Tua isn't as bad as Rosen or Haskins was. He doesn't deserve to have his career effectively thrown out because of this. So it is a smart call to keep Tua there at starting QB. A lot to build from and a lot of picks and draft capital to make it happen.
Okay. For those listening on YouTube, I apologize. Bear with me. We got some things going on here, noise gate wise, which is you're coming through very quietly, and I think that's causing some cutting out because of the noise gate that we use to filter out some of the buzz here. So I'll be tweaking that throughout the episode. Bear with us. It won't come if you're listening on regular audio, you won't hear it. So just if you're on YouTube, that's why. We'll work at it. This is a live show. We don't edit this if you're on YouTube. So shit like this happens. All right. Coach and GM firings. So Black Monday, it happened, and I think it pretty well went the way that we thought it was going to go. There wasn't anything here in any
There's nothing shocking.
realm that was shocking.
Yeah.
Bill O'Brien and Dan Quinn, we already knew about being gone from the Texans and Falcons, and Matt Patricia with the Lions. Adam Gase is fired from the Jets. That was the first one that broke. That was fully 100% anticipated that Adam Gase would be fired.
Yep.
Anthony Lynn from the Chargers. That we assumed was also coming. That is probably the one that you could question most, given that they did win their last 4 games, and a lot of times that's enough to save coaches. And that they did, have a very good season last year, but. It wasn't. It's good to see that it wasn't lost on the franchise. And Anthony Lynn has also, cost them 3 or 4 of those wins.
I think it was the mishandling of the Herbert situation with some obviously game management allowed in there. Lynn just kind of warmed his welcome there. It's more so. It was great that they won their last 4. It's good that they beat a second team Chiefs team at that point. I'm just happy. I'm done with Anthony Lynn, so I'm good for the move there.
Okay. Doug Marrone fired from the Jaguars. That was also heavily anticipated. They have not improved any over the last 4 years. They've ever since their AFC Championship run. They've consistently gotten worse.
Yeah, we all knew it was going to happen. Both them and the GM, we knew. And it'll be a nice, clean, fresh start for the Jaguars and their likely first-round pick, or first pick overall of Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, I agree with that. I lost my spot again. Dave Caldwell, GM for the Jaguars, also gone. That happened earlier in the season, I believe. Paul Gunther, Raiders defensive coordinator. That's not entirely shocking, as well as the Panthers general manager, Marty Hurney, also gone. Panthers GM's a little surprising, given that it is a team that was in rebuild, but I don't know that the Panthers have done anything super questionable. Like, they had a good draft. From what
I'm not going to speak heavily onto what I think of this as a good move or a smart move. It's
a move.
It's a move.
Yeah, I don't know that this is one that a lot of people were calling for. It's yeah, I don't know. Panthers is going to be an attractive GM job. They've got pieces. They've got a good head coach in place. They've got obviously Christian McCaffrey, good piece in DJ Moore. Do need to get a quarterback. Jeremy Chin was fantastic this year on defense. Is a
so good,
very usable piece. So,
before we jump into the next part, that question, pretty simple. Rodgers for MVP?
Yeah, I don't know how it's not. You could make a case for Josh Allen, but I mean, Rodgers was fantastic. I don't know how it's not Aaron Rodgers.
It's gonna be Rodgers, and that's because the MVP is just a quarterback award.
Yeah.
I personally think it should be Derrick Henry. 8th 2,000-yard rusher. Just like when Peterson did it back in 2012, is the biggest reason why this team, the Titans this year, made the playoffs, and just historically how rare it is to see a 2K rusher, especially nowadays, with the game moving more towards a up-tempo passing pace. A lot of teams are opting to use more of a backfield by committee, and the ways of guys like Derrick Henry are just shifting out. It's something that it may be a while until we see again. 2,000 yards from scrimmage, not that shocking. 2,000 yards rushing though, on top of his team making the playoffs, I think Henry gets a true. I think Henry should be the MVP, but it's going to go to the Rodgers.
Fair. Coaches that are expected to return. First off, let's look at some of these firings real quick, though. And out of those head coaches that are firing, if you're a head coach, which of those jobs, head coaching-wise, is the most attractive to you, given the draft capital available, the cap spaces available, the team and the pieces that are already there?
Chargers. Like, there's obviously Herbert, Eckler, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Hunter Henry, a top 15 pick. If not top 10, obviously to help the offensive line, and it fits perfectly. Like you already have a quarterback who's shown to be successful.
You got a young pass rusher with Joey Bosa, and
exactly.
Yeah,
that would be my if it was obviously me, it'd be my preference in any spot.
Yeah, I would say the Chargers, and special shout out to the Jaguars just because they do have a decent amount of draft capital. And really, James Robinson was a good find. More on him later in the show. You have DJ Chark and Visca Chenault, which is a good, some good offensive pieces. Line, Cam Robinson, not terrible. You also do have, some usable defensive pieces, even though it was kind of a dumpster fire. And I really do like the way the Cons go about business from an ownership standpoint, and they have a ton of cap space. So, Jags and Chargers, by far, the two most attractive landing spots. Least attractive landing spots, that's got to be the Texans and the Jets.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably the Jets. But I do agree with you. Like, it feels like they're going to just completely wash themselves and Bill O'Brien in Houston, which is a good thing, obviously. And you get to have a building block lease and Deshaun Watson. But that team is going to probably be another year or two out as they continue to build pieces around Watson. So exciting because you get a young quarterback like that. Jets I just don't trust the organization at all. So
yeah, I don't trust the organization at all. The Texans, you've got no draft picks. You've got your top, you got Will Fuller is going to be a free agent. Who just got popped for Peds. You've got Brandon Cooks as your other wide receiver. You've been stuck with David Johnson, who had a better season, but still wasn't,
he's not a future
elite. He's not a future piece, not a build-around piece. You've got an aging defense. that you can't really build around in Houston, and you have not a lot of cap room, or actually you have no cap room and no draft capital to try to build that team up. At least with the Jets, you have draft capital. You've got a young piece in Denzel Mims. You've got Sam Darnold, who's still a quarterback on his rookie deal. So if you're trying to manage cap, you have a second-round pick. Or, sorry, not a second-round pick. You have the number 2 overall pick. So if I'm coming in, I think the Jets is more attractive to me than Houston. I know that
Jets on paper for sure look more attractive.
It's just, do they make the right move? And that remains to be seen. It's going to be interesting to watch. As far as GM spots, Jaguars and Panthers both have an opening. Broncos also have a GM opening, by the way. John Elway stepped down.
He promoted himself.
Promoted himself and relinquished roster control, so he's hiring a GM.
Just.
And
I forgot to put. I should have put that down.
Yeah, but as far as GM jobs go, between the Jags, Panthers, and Broncos, those GM jobs all have, upside. I think, given draft capital that's there, the pieces you have. Broncos have some nice pieces in place. They really do. With Noah Fant, with Cortland Sutton, with Jerry Jeudy, with I might catch some bar with you saying this, but Drew Lock.
He's safe.
It's a quarterback on your rookie deal that still has some upside. It's, he might be a year away from being in the same position Sam Darnold is, but it gives you some ability to do some things in free agency that you wouldn't normally be able to do if you've got a quarterback that's not on a rookie deal. You still have some pieces on that defense too, but the offensive pieces in Denver that are already there make that GM job pretty attractive. But same with the Panthers. Jaguars have pieces, and again, they have a lot of capital, a lot of cap room.
Yep.
In Jacksonville. Coach is expected to return. Zach Taylor of the Bengals, Doug Peterson of the Eagles, Matt Nagy of the Bears, Gruden with the Raiders, all people that were on, less than stellar seasons. Zach Taylor was the one that we felt like could have gone either way. I agree with the decision to keep him.
Yeah, I mean, he lost his rookie quarterback. He lost his
top running back.
Mm-hmm. Again, he lost key defensive pieces and signings. We still don't know. There's still a lot of uncertainty whether or not he's going to be a successful NFL coach, but he'll get a pass this year, as he should have. Next year it's a big one though. Next year is it's all important piece. Even with injuries coming back, even with Burrow hopefully going to be back for the start of the season, but that one's going to be the more important season to watch out for.
Yeah, and you also want consistency for your young quarterback from a Joe Burrow perspective. You want consistency in the offensive scheme, consistency in the coaching staff, especially given that he didn't get a full season with him. So, I think that's another reason why it made sense to keep him versus, put on your second-year quarterback. Not only are you rehabbing, but now we need you to learn a new offense and a new scheme. Doug Peterson, I think, should have been fired, personally. He won't be. I hope it changes, just like you do. Less than stellar season, though. The roster management's been poor. I thought Roseman should have been fired because of that. Eagles are at a point where they're riding their Super Bowl win of a couple of years back straight into purgatory, essentially.
Yeah, it's if you're a Philly fan, I can't be able to say this. I feel bad for you. It's gonna get ugly. Shouting for Peterson's job to be cut throughout the season. Howie Roseman's lost any love from that fan base, and now potentially players and everything else. Who knows? Wentz is preferred. There's obviously conflicting reports on what he wants and what his role and what he wants his role to be with Philly. Obviously, that's going to happen with a player of his, of his stature within the league in itself, and as on his own team. So it's going to be a very interesting offseason for the Eagles, and they're going to make a move to get rid of Doug Peterson. They got to do it.
Yeah.
While there's still of these top coaching guy's still there. You know, your top candidate's still there. You don't want to miss out on that and then have to kind of scrape to put together something that you really don't want next year.
Yeah, Matt Nagy expected to stay. We'll find out about Ryan Pace, assuming after the Bears lose to the Saints.
He'll be there. I think both him and Pace are going to have their
Do you
jobs.
think they'll ride together, then get canned together?
I would assume so.
Yeah, I think so. Sorry, not canned. I think after next year, both contracts expire. Okay. Anything else on coaches, GM vacancies, any of that stuff? Any offensive coordinators get the can, or?
I didn't see any. I expect to see a little bit more throughout the week. We will probably, obviously, we'll have updates on these situations as they arise, but it didn't seem so Black Monday-esque.
No, it seemed a little slow.
Three of these firings happening mid-season for head coaching jobs. We knew of Gase, we knew Lynn, we knew Marone were all going to be gone. Nothing really shocked us yet. I think there's still one out there, like a Zimmer, Peterson. I don't know how shocking it would be, but it feels like if it does happen to be a little shocking. Those are the two that I'm kind of waiting to see. Gary Kubiak, Vikings OC, likely to retire after this year, opening up another OC job. Zimmer's been the coach for 6 years. It'll be his sixth OC.
Re-retire.
Yes.
For Kubiak.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. Looking at some of these futures deal signings. All right, let's go ahead and get into the Fuelies. It's one of the most fun segments of the year.
Yep.
Beer-fueled Fuelies.
All right. So we have, I think, 10 categories of awards to hand out in this one. Some we agree with, some we don't. We'll have honorable mentions. We'll start it off with the 2020 Fantasy Football Rookie of the Year. Dan, who is your pick for the Fantasy Football Rookie of the Year?
I put down James Robinson. This may be a little controversial, and Hopper, your pick would have been my pick had he not have been picked.
Oh, we could have picked the same person. But
yeah, I feel like we could have had a lot of the same people for a lot of these categories, and I know with honorable mentions to help us to talk about more of them also. But I feel like Robinson really does need to have his own talking about too, because he stepped into a role late into a preseason of whatever preseason there was, and commanded that job. Obviously, Rocco Armstead getting put on COVID twice, lost his season. I'm like, for much as we shit on him, I hope the guy actually does recover and hopefully has a somewhat successful career. The other guy that was supposed to be in competition, Robertson, really stepped up. I believe he had.
Zigbo was.
Zigbo.
Yeah, was hurt and COVID. Yeah,
exactly. I believe Robinson saw mostly 70+% snap share. He never blew up in the sense he had blow up games.
It was Myles Gaskin.
He was always one of the most trusted RB2s, and for the majority of the season was the best rookie running back, which is pretty impressive given how much we touted this 2020 running back class. So definitely want to give him a shout out for that, more of a personal shout out to that instead of just an honorable mention.
Yep. My 2020 Fantasy Football Rookie of the Year is Justin Jefferson, which I think is what a lot of people would answer. It's hard to look away. Rookie receiving yard record. More receiving yards in his rookie season than Randy Moss, 1,400 is, I believe, where Justin Jefferson ended.
He broke the record.
Yeah, he did. We knew he was going into a landing spot with a lot of opportunity, given the absence of Stephon Diggs and the complete lack of depth the Vikings have at that position. 1,000 yards is not out of the realm of possibility. What he did is more than I think what anybody anticipated him doing. We
Yeah.
expected him to be good. He came out his rookie season and was absolutely great.
And he didn't play the first, he didn't start the first 2 games.
No, he didn't. Like, he would have had an absolute blow up. He's an asset to have for, years to come. And as Henry Ruggs continues to be a bust, there'll be a lot more questions asked about why, Justin Jefferson was ever allowed to get all the way to the Vikings. So,
I mean, he's more right now. He's tethered to Philly passing on him for Jalen Reagor.
that too.
I've seen a lot of those. Again, guys, as someone who is a huge Reagor truther, don't give up on him. But we're not talking about him. Just Jefferson, absolute fucking monster.
Some honorable mentions here. J.K. Dobbins, he was saddled by the fact that the Ravens are a timeshare, essentially. But he eventually relegated Mark Ingram to the bench. It was the script we anticipated for J.K. Dobbins, I think, coming in, Dan. He relegated Mark Ingram to the bench. Gus Edwards was a thorn that we didn't necessarily expect. But the script still worked out. He took over as a starter as the season went on. After Ingram went to the bench, he cut into Edwards' chair, eventually putting Edwards into the change of pace back role and becoming the lead back in Baltimore. And, capped it off with a really, really solid performance. He's going to be a good asset coming into next year. Just didn't have the high-level performance all season long to be considered for Rookie of the Year, although he did progress very, very nicely as the season wore on, was still a very usable piece, and is going to be a nice piece coming into next season.
Yeah, and then obviously Jonathan Taylor up next, in our honorable mentions list, battled the same type of backfield issues that Dobbins did. Obviously, Marlon Mack went down before week 1, or in week 1, changed a lot of our minds and what we expected from him moving forward. A lot of inconsistencies for the first 10 or so weeks of the season. A lot of battling of Nyheim Hines, a lot of battling which is odd and poor coaching and play decisions throughout that beginning part. But he capped off the 2020 season with, I believe, 7 touchdowns in his last 5 games, something like that. Maybe wrong. But either way, he capped off the fantasy playoffs with an RB3 finish into that and became the 3rd leading rusher in the NFL. Obviously, vastly behind Derrick Henry and Dalvin Cook, but very much so paid off of what a lot of us liked about him.
Somebody on Twitter, I can't remember for the life of me, put out there a Jonathan Taylor and David Montgomery comparison, and this made me look into some context a little bit. On November 22nd, Jonathan Taylor said the game slowed down from me. And from that point on, I want to say he was a top 5 running back in fantasy.
Sometimes it just clicks.
It does.
Players, all it takes is one moment.
And he talked about realizing he needed to let blocks develop for him. He needed to be a little bit more patient and take time to see the game instead of just college where it's just get the ball and fucking bulldoze everybody. And that realization from there, I think, elevated his game. CeeDee Lamb and T. Higgins, I think we can talk about kind of as one entity. They both ended up with 900-plus yard seasons. They both would have been up in probably the 1,200-plus yard range had both starting quarterbacks not went down with injury. And they both we threw some ice water on them in redraft because of where they landed. I mean, you had 2 established receivers in Cincinnati. You had 2 established receivers in Dallas. And it was, where are they going to carve out their role? Where are they going to sit in the pecking order? And you didn't have preseason to figure that one out. Well, as it turns out, they both sat on teams with bad defenses basically as a second option under their starting quarterbacks. And that made them very usable fantasy pieces. But the ankle injury to Dak Prescott and eventually the knee injury to Joe Burrow really cooled them both off down the stretch. They both had good weeks, but it wasn't the every week type of high-end performance going forward. I think going back into those offenses next year, both guys are going to bounce back. I think that they would have been given Justin Jefferson a little bit of a run.
CeeDee Lamb would have, the pace that he was on before Dak got hurt, he would have been.
T would have probably been the tier below him.
Rookie, he would have been the number 1 scoring rookie receiver And that's not any slight to Jefferson. That's just that offense was built to fly, and he had already surpassed Gallup at that point, and he was
Working on Cooper.
stride to stride with Cooper at that point. The loss of Dak completely changed the offense, and we saw what happened with it. Higgins is in the same boat. He took over, Green's role about midway point through the season, and him and Boyd are really good matched together as a complement pieces to each other. So Justin Herbert, last honorable mention, likely going to win the NFL Rookie of the Year. Just given how insanely good, especially a stretch through the middle part.
Rookie touchdown record.
Yeah, he broke the rookie touchdown record. He had a battle with Anthony Lynn's incompetence beginning part of the season. For some reason, giving Tyrod the start over him. His future is bright, and
yeah, he only didn't make it because unlike the NFL, this is in fantasy quarterbacks, especially when you talk single quarterback, really kind of take a back seat in what we're handing out because there's not a lot of parity at the position. But Justin Herbert's season is not one you can turn a blind eye to either. It was, again, better than a lot of people thought. We thought Herbert was going to come in as the quarterback that needed the, some polish put on him. We thought that sitting a year behind Tyrod was going to be a good thing for him. And turns out he didn't need it. He was able to get in there and go as soon as the opportunity presented itself, and he didn't slow down. And, I think stride for stride with Burrow the whole way would have been the way that played out. I'm kind of sad that we didn't get the Rookie of the Year race. I guess different division. No, they're both AFC.
Same conference.
Same conference. So we didn't get the Rookie of the Year race between them that we probably deserved. But, Herbert outperformed all expectations. I think that he easily outperformed Tua, and then the Burrow injury. He's the best quarterback out of this class this year.
Yep.
All right. Next up, we have the 2020 Disappointing Your Parents Award for the most disappointing non-injury-related player. Mine goes to A.J. Green. A lot was made of him coming back off of ankle injury, new quarterback, assuming he would retake that top role, and it never materialized, and it wasn't health-related. He played all 16 games, just 5.5 points per game. A little bit of time there in the middle of the season where you thought he was going to figure it out, but Tyler Boyd remained the wide receiver one there. T. Higgins came in and really took over, and for whatever reason, Green just never really reintegrated into this offense, be it due to age or be it due to trying to come back from injury or be it due to, just Burrow not looking his way. He never reintegrated into that offense. He was somebody that was a mid-round pick that a lot of people thought would outperform that, and it never happened.
Yeah, obviously the rise of Higgins, just Higgins coming on so early on into the season, kind of showcased the change of the guard effectively. Mine's Mark Ingram. 11 games. He only played 11 games. I think he was hurt for one or two, and then Dobbins' ascendant second half really pushed him back onto the bench. Only 4.5 points per game when he played. He was the RB72 when the season was over with. He was a fourth round draft capital. He was someone people was banking on as their RB2, RB1, potentially if you went wide receiver tight end heavy to start. That completely shit the bed. And when you miss on your first running back, even on your second running back to a certain extent, can really put a damper onto your season. Mark Ingram did absolutely no help throughout that. I don't think he even had an RB1 week throughout the entire season. He maybe had a couple RB2s because he's got some touchdowns sprinkled in there, but his days are done with the way that AJ Green's days are done with Cincinnati. Mark Ingram's days are done with Baltimore now. He did his job. He was the bridge between whatever it was last year to Dobbins this year. So Mark Ingram, as the footballers would say, pooped his big boy pants.
All right, some honorable mentions here. Carson Wentz. Yeah, a lot of people expected Carson Wentz to still perform in that mid top 10 range, and for whatever reason, he didn't. He didn't have the rushing upside that he normally has. Accuracy went totally away. Obviously, a lot of problems at wide receiver for the Eagles. Zach Ertz disappearing act, really. Although Dallas Goedert injury, a lot of reasons for Carson Wentz to not perform, but he didn't. Lamar Jackson, he turned it on as the season went along, but I think early on there were some struggles with him. For as high as Lamar Jackson was drafted, you expected him to far and away be the quarterback one with that RB1 type upside. Rushing, I believe, fell off a little bit, and the Ravens rushing game in general fell off a little bit as the NFL adjusted, and that put Lamar Jackson into more of that quarterback one range.
It's
not far and away the best.
I mean, for him, mostly it's the regression we all saw happening. Obviously, a lot harder regression, especially the middle part of the season. And as you mentioned, it started to come on a little bit more towards the end. Did 8 passing touchdowns and just the 2 interceptions in his last 3 games, and then the rushing production kind of started to take off a little bit. The touchdowns were there. This is likely his floor, which is probably a good thing for most people out there to see. It's something to potentially and kind of expect from Josh Allen maybe next year. But I'm not throwing salt in that water at any point soon. I'm just throwing that out there now.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect the fall off to be so hard
not
for
so
Josh
harsh.
Allen. Yeah, not so harsh. He's not, doesn't have a 30-plus-year-old running back opening things up for him, and he actually has established receivers around him.
I think Lamar's still going to be a value next year.
I think
there's
going
to be a lot of hype. It's going to be tough. It's going to be a lot of hype.
I think that, I think that Josh Allen's going to get the Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes treatment.
Yep.
And you're right on that front, making that comparison. And I think Lamar's going to fall down a bit and become a value.
Yep. Zach Ertz, next one. Again, just like with Carson Wentz, it's just tied to the whole situation within Philly. His injury, offense never really was right. We talked about Mark Ingram. I forgot to X shout out.
All good.
And Zeke. Zeke was, again, like with CeeDee Lamb, was more of a product of the offense completely sputtering after Dak's injury. Zeke in himself, I think, is just losing that juice, though, to him.
A lot of people expected Zeke would, as they became less of a passing offense and relied on him more when Dak got hurt, and he couldn't carry it. Offensive line had a lot of problems.
Yeah.
A lot of issues with that offensive line, though. A lot of injuries, a lot of turnover, not a lot of stability.
And I think Zeke should retain his volume next year. That contract is fucking abysmal. They're going to be handicapped by that for a few years.
Redraft value.
He was also clearly outplayed by Tony Pollard.
Yeah.
It's Zeke will be fine as an RB2, but the days of Zeke RB1, I think, might be beyond him.
If people start expecting a bounce back, sell.
Yeah, he is. He's already passed his age apex for dynasty. He's going to be more of a difficult sell at that point. You're going to get people who want to buy low, depending on how low the value actually dips. Just don't see Todd Gurley this past season.
Yeah, I got out on him this past year entirely.
Yep.
Breakout player of the year. So non-rookie with the most improved season. This was unanimous. Josh Allen.
Easily. I don't think anybody else should have even sniffed this category.
No. There's some honorable mentions listed just because there are other guys that had good seasons. None of them were at the level that Josh Allen's was or the level of improvement that Josh Allen had. Props to Brian Daboll, the offensive coordinator, who's going to get head coaching looks. Props to Stephon Diggs coming in there. That benefit cannot be overstated, how well those two worked together and how well they meshed. But Josh Allen, a lot more intelligent throws. Kept the rushing floor. I think something seemed to click for him to where he figured out how to use his arm talent without, putting shit in jeopardy. And big accuracy improvements. I don't know if that's the offense, if it's Diggs, if it's improvements on Allen, if it's both. What we likely saw this season, though, where we saw Lamar's floors, we probably saw Allen's ceiling. So don't be surprised if there is some regression there. But going forward, he is a top 10 quarterback. He's a top 5 quarterback. And, I think that he established himself as a long-term dynasty asset.
I mean, I threw this out in a tweet, and shout out to my boy Ray JQ. He put out a tweet that stated that Josh Allen should
Ray's a good follow, by the way, for anybody that's not.
Yes, exactly. He put out a tweet stated that Josh Allen should be part of the QB2 conversation.
He should
Unanimously, we all can agree on that Patrick Mahomes is the dynasty QB1. The QB2 spot we all thought was Lamar Jackson.
Well,
it has since shifted, and now there is a whole tier full of guys here with Lamar Jackson,
Kyler Murray,
Josh Allen, and Kyler Murray, Dak Prescott.
Mm-hmm.
You can make arguments for even I won't say Deshaun Watson, but and maybe Russell Wilson. Those guys I think have seemingly have fallen into the next tier below. But Josh Allen has firmly planted himself into that second tier, and he's going to be on massive topics of conversation, not just for regression, but for dynasty sells.
Mm-hmm.
If you're still in the camp of not believing in Josh Allen, please just quit dynasty at this point. Stop having take lock. You need to accept and just see the insane improvements that he made throughout and just across the board. You already mentioned all the shout outs for the guys that deserve this honor with him. So it's
honorable mentions, guys that we've seen cases for. I saw a case for David Montgomery, his comeback player of the year. I think PFF tweeted that one. And
it was for fantasy. It's just
it still doesn't make any sense in fantasy.
It doesn't
either.
make any sense at all.
Breakout player, yes. Comeback player, no. David Montgomery did break out when the Bears made some offensive line changes down the stretch. He was a top 5 running back down the stretch. He cleared 1,000 yards this season. David Montgomery had a very good year. The running back position as a whole, I think, was down. But David Montgomery was up, especially the back half of the season. Ronald Jones, started off the year hot, and then COVID happened, injuries happened, Brady got more in tune with the passing game. But Ronald Jones had himself a solid season. DK Metcalf was, up until that game against the 49ers, was in the conversation. Did he end up leading the league in receiving yards? I don't think he did.
No, Diggs did.
I think he got passed by Diggs. But Metcalf was second, I'm pretty sure, in receiving yards, establishing himself as a long-term dynasty asset. Then a shout-out to Myles Gaskin, who went from essentially nothing last year to, locked and loaded, stardom top 15 running back, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, Jones, it's a great bounce back here for him. He might be saved by the Bucs being a playoff caliber roster and wanting to keep, familiar pieces within that backfield. But he could potentially be gone. Myles Gaskin, we just gotta hope that he can survive the running back landfill mine that is of this free agent class and the draft class. Montgomery's RB2 finish down the stretch post bye week will be one to remember. It was one of the easiest things to see in terms of soft ass schedule. Both him and Jonathan Taylor had the 2 easiest running back schedules after their bye weeks, and there were reasons why we were, people were out there telling you to go get them on your redraft rosters. The Metcalf, as you mentioned, is a top 3 to 5 receiver in dynasty.
Indeed. All right. 2020 under the radar player of the year, guy that didn't get talked about, didn't get love, that absolutely came out and performed above expectations. Mine is Tyler Lockett. I didn't know until watching the broadcast that Lockett was near 100 receptions. Wide receiver 9.
Outside of it was because of some of the inconsistencies after his breakout, his blow up and career defining game against the Cardinals. I think people just became
Weary.
just more weary of him. And then the consistency he showed towards the end of the season when Metcalf was going through his struggles. Yeah, I agree. He never gets talked about enough. The same way as in Doug Baldwin never did when he took over for Baldwin. Is now Locker's job.
Yeah, and a better year than last season for Tyler Lockett. And people thought he was a value coming into this year, but he was within 3 yards of his season last year. Had 22 more targets caught, 18 more balls, 2 more touchdowns than the year before. So he improved.
Mine was Robert Woods. And if you're a fan of the show, you know of the awesomely fun debate that Hopper and I always have between Woods and Cup.
I lost it this year.
The answer is generally both.
Yeah.
Touchdowns eluded Woods last year. Cup was insane last year with touchdown rate. That essentially flipped. Cup battled a couple of injuries. Woods was just consistent. He was consistent last year just without the touchdowns. This year, that consistency kind of stayed there at 8 weeks of wide receiver 2 production or more. And while he didn't cap 1,000 yards this season, receiving, he did cap 1,000 yards in scrimmage yards as he became more involved as a rusher and just a playmaker within this offense. Goff and his inconsistencies kind of showed through, but like with Cup and Woods, those are his 2 security blankets. And again, defining that just because you're getting up there in age doesn't mean you still don't have a viable role as a fantasy asset. Woods plays the perfect position to kind of age with. And he'll be entering his age 29 season, so there'll be people starting to push back on that for him. But as long as Sean McVay's the head coach, as long as Jared Goff is not the worst quarterback in the league, both Woods and Cup, and because we're talking about Woods now, should be always viable and generally at value. He was generally around between a 4 and 5 option and was a capstone on a lot of my robust RB drafts.
The spread on Cooper Kupp between PPR and standard scoring, by the way, is insane. He has an 18-position spread between PPR and standard.
This year?
Yeah.
Yeah. Last year was like the opposite because of all the touchdowns.
It was. Yeah, he was wide receiver 18 in PPR, which is still lower than you anticipated for Coop. Wide receiver 36 in standard.
It was, I mean, it really falls on to just, I think Goff's the underlying issue there.
Yeah.
But as long as Goff's there, he's going to feed both Woods and Kupp. And Van Jefferson not really being much, Josh Reynolds just being a guy, I think, kind of cements that Woods and Kupp is the 1A, 1B, and however you want to rank them.
Yeah. Speaking of consistent, Triptych's IPAs are typically really consistent, and this is no different. You definitely get some banana notes off of this, which is, I'm assuming, is why it's called banana for scale. Not so much in the aroma, but in the flavor. Aroma hits you with a nice earthy hoppiness, though, when you first pull it out. It's just nice and earthy, some pine notes to it. A little bit of stickiness in the smell, if that makes sense. Almost like pine tar, if you will.
Makes sense.
But some good floral notes to it. And then you get a nice mix between banana and tropical fruit notes on the hops to, again, some piney type of floral hops. It's got the same body that you get on your dank beam or your really dank beam from these guys. Overall, it's a very, very solid IPA, another very solid offering from Triptych.
We're going to stick with the consistency, and we're going to stick with the beer reviews. Bourbon County, just like with Triptych and the consistency of what they put out for their IPA. Goose Island's Bourbon County, the consistency and the top tier consistency of what they put out for their barrel aged release every Black Friday. Again, reminding you guys, this is their Kentucky Fob, the Earl Grey tea, black tea, and honey variant of their bourbon barrel aged stout. On this, pretty rich. It's at 14.1%, so the booze is definitely there. It doesn't really drink like there's a lot of booze there, which is probably a dangerous thing. The black tea really helps. It really, really sticks out to me the most in this, and that's generally just the heat that comes from it makes you not want to drink more than just a quick taste to it. The honey kind of, I think, is faded out more, so I don't know if that's because of the tea that's involved or the heat that comes from the black tea. But the honey kind of just lingers there. I don't drink a lot of Earl Grey tea, so unfortunately, I don't know what more to look out for when it comes to that. But again, another fantastic effort and put forth together stout by this set. Hopper mentioned at the beginning of the show that this is a very controversial variant this year. It's just one of the first times they've featured Earl Grey tea.
It's also that tea in a
appearance.
beer is just typically divisive anyway because it's weird. I've
It
brewed
is.
a beer with tea in it, and it gives
get
it
mixed results.
it gives it a totally different body.
Yeah, and it's something different. And it's something that if you haven't tried a lot of tea within your beers, definitely if you have this, it's a good shareable beer. Thankfully, my job sells them as singles, and I can still buy another one if I need to. It's very unique, and I wanted to present this with you guys today as we go through the rest of our award show.
Indeed. Honorable mentions for the Under the Radar Player of the Year. Dave Montgomery, we already harped on. We'll get to Brandon Cooks. Kareem Hunt, top 10 running back. Again, very low-key. A lot of the love. Yeah.
So that is fucking weird.
A lot of the love went to Nick Chubb in that offense, but Kareem Hunt ended as a top 10 running back in half point.
Wow. I mean, Chubb was hurt for a good portion of this year. So I guess that, yeah.
Yeah. And the Browns are one of the most run-heavy teams in football. So, Ryan Tannehill, QB7, I believe, is where he ended up. So
he's been so good.
He's been very good and consistent. And Kyler Murray, low-key, ending up as a quarterback too. A lot of rushing for think for that one.
If he didn't hurt his shoulder, it'd be him and Josh Allen as your fantasy player, as your breakout player of the year. Because Murray, since that shoulder injury, Murray was the QB1 for a large part of the season.
Yep. All right, victory lap of the year. This is where Dan and I get to tell you what we're most proud of getting right. Mine was Brandon Cooks. With all the target volume that Hopkins left on the table, the thought was that Brandon Cooks is going to come out and be the wide receiver one, and it was a slow start. It looked like that was not going to be the case. It looked like I was going to eat crow, and that would be wrong. And after about week 4, I was fully prepared to. But if you had patience with that take, Brandon Cooks ended up as a wide receiver 6, and from week 5 on, he actually outscored DeAndre Hopkins. So, bad offense on a high-volume passing offense. Took a little bit for him to get acclimated to it. You had the coaching change with Bill O'Brien leaving, so that probably contributed. You had the lack of training camp, the sort of off-season, building rapport with the new quarterback. But once again, Brandon Cooks came in and showed, he can be a number one guy regardless of where he is, and that take was absolutely on the money. Brandon Cooks is what I want to victory lap, as a guy that was going, in the 6th, 7th round and ended up as a top 10 wide receiver.
I'm gonna throw Jonathan Taylor out there. A lot of Jonathan Taylor victory laps in the timeline. I don't really give a fuck because it's my turn to victory lap on it. The inconsistent start to the year was definitely the highlight of it. Obviously, the 2 or 3 game stretch he had in the middle part that really soured people. They had people questioning their takes. That was trying to sell Jonathan Taylor in Dynasty. That was kicking and screaming because you wasted a round 4 pick on him. From his moment that he spoke about the game changing for him, his game against the Packers in Week 11, he was the RB3. He turned it on. We got to see what we saw from Wisconsin on that film. What we saw from Jonathan Taylor first half was completely different from what we saw from week half. And we told you to stick with them. We told you not to sell him in Dynasty. We told you not to drop him in redraft. He always had the touch floor that we needed to throw him in there, at least as a flex play. The snap shares never really got great until the later part of the year. But he finally regulated Jordan Wilkins to the bench. I don't know why it took that long. Hines will always have a roles on his there. But Taylor showed that even on just a 49% snap share for the year, he could finish as a top 10 back. He finished as the RB6 in the season.
All right. So for every good take, there's a bad take. Actually, normally more bad takes than good takes. So if we're going to take a victory lap, we also have to hate on ourselves a little bit in what was our worst advice of the year. And mine was, why does everyone hate Leonard Fournette? The Jaguars aren't going to cut Leonard
was-
Fournette. He's the only guy that's really there. He got a ton of volume. He got a ton of passing volume. Why is everybody down on this guy? And then the Jaguars cut Leonard Fournette. And then he signed with the Bucks. And then Ronald Jones was a thing, and he never got going. Didn't see anywhere near the volume, anywhere near the fantasy productivity. That draft pick, in large part, was a reason I did not perform in at least one league. And, yeah, that was, hindsight's always 20/20. I didn't know, obviously, at the time I made that take that they were going to release him. But, there's no way it can happen. Just proves that, there's a way it can happen. And there was some reason that they weren't sold on him, and it was James Robinson is what ended up being the answer.
Yeah. Fade Stephon Diggs. New team, same situation. Was a popular take of mine throughout majority of the offseason last year. This is obviously before we knew Josh Allen was going to be an actual legit pocket passer. This was before we knew that COVID offseason didn't mean a fucking thing because rookie receivers went off this year. Rookies in general went off this year. Diggs became one of just two wide receivers to post 10 plus points in every week this year. Finished the year as the leading receiver in both receptions and yards, and basically got his wish, and that was a quarterback that wasn't afraid to throw him the football on an offense that wasn't afraid to feature him as the primary number one receiver. Not just with this take, but in general, even with Hopkins. Hopkins dealt with issues, but Hopkins was a massive beast throughout majority of the early part of the year. The injury to Kyler kind of set that entire team up backwards, including with Hopkins. So this might be us burying the motto of fading a receiver, joining a new team. I think it's time to throw that out.
Well, Hopkins,
yeah, the player as well.
Giving us a little pass on Hopkins because he was not the wide receiver one, essentially, and he did fade down the stretch some. But
I did mention. I said, I did mention that with the injury to Murray and just the Cardinals themselves struggled towards the end of the year. But I still contributed to that a lot to the Murray injury. Just completely changed how everything kind of went for them. But Diggs, in his own right, deservingly gets the praise that he should. And at just 28 years old, going into his 28th year season, is in the prime spots of it. It's going to be someone that you should be looking to get in the offseason, and someone that I was completely wrong on for fantasy.
Indeed. All right. The 2020 Golden Face Mask Award. COVID kind of took away the Golden Handcuffs Award. So,
yeah.
The Golden Face Mask Award for the dumbest mistake by a player or team. Mine's going to Dwayne Haskins.
Yeah.
Not for any one situation, but for the cumulative run of situations that happened, and we've covered them. Immaturity and unpreparedness essentially got him benched by Ron Rivera early on, dropped down to third string. It's another chance due to injuries, gets caught, potentially jeopardizing the team's playoff hopes, and a lot of other things by whether it was a strip club or his sister's birthday, doing something you normally wouldn't bat an eye at, but because it's a pandemic, we batted an eye at. And, shows that, that's not being a leader, that's not being a team player, and if there's one thing young quarterbacks are supposed to be, it's a leader. From there, was still retained, given a shot to start, poor on-field performance, then refusing to do media, finally led to his downfall. It's just the cumulative of Dwayne Haskins burning the second and third chance he was given to get his shit right, combined with poor on-field play, that really makes me call that the dumbest move of 2020, because that's essentially, you more or less threw a career away. They'd rather pay you to sit at home than to play.
Yeah. And that was going to be mine. But again, because I absolutely love this category, we have to talk about more than just a couple things. So I put mine down. Mine was the Jets winning Week 15. And obviously, it's not just one player or just a team as a whole that played. it's everything. And something that we'll talk about a lot when rookie draft season starts, in between Lawrence and Fields or Lawrence. We'll probably make this not mute, but it's been deemed to us that Lawrence is the number one pick. He's the prize. He's the trophy of this draft class. You want him, we want him, we want him. And the Jets were in the driver's seat till week 15 to pick who they wanted. It wasn't that it was just Lawrence. They had the choice. And it was them being able to wash away everything with Gase, because we knew Gase was going to be gone after the season. And let them start anew with whoever they wanted to pick. They go on not only win 15, but to win 16. Thankfully, the win in 16 had nothing to really do with the draft order. But now with that win in 15, it opened up the floodgates of not only not selecting Justin Fields, which would be the worst decision to do, but it brought up talks of them potentially passing on Fields for Zach Wilson, and then trading back, which will be debated on throughout if that's the right call or not. It went from them having a pretty clear future to now having a fumble fuck of opinions and what to do is when it should be simple, and then it's time to hit reset.
Yeah, indeed. Honorable mentions to the Bears handling of the Foles and Trubisky situation. They ultimately made the playoffs. Could have been a little bit easier of a trek if they had not experimented with Nick Foles.
We talked about this a lot, but it had to be thrown in there.
It did. One more dagger, and then you had Josh Jacobs versus fantasy Twitter.
So this one is particularly great. So a few weeks back, when Josh Jacobs' availability was in question, whether or not he was going to play,
I remember this.
Jacobs basically just threw flames to the fire on Twitter. We all know Josh Jacobs fucking hates fantasy football for whatever reason. He really truly hates
some players do. It's just a thing.
And he really hates fantasy Twitter. So when you go and you call out a part of a community that helps your career in terms of earnings, not only do you shit on them, but then you have a shit performance, and you follow that up the week afterwards with a shit performance, and just continue to double down on hate on everything. It just makes you look worse. Now, and I know that Hopper can agree with me this. You should never, never, ever add a player. These guys have so much more on their plates, so much more in their lives that we don't see or get to see or hear about that they have to deal with. They have to deal with some fucking social justice warrior, some fat kid in his mom's basement bitching about a player.
Hey, I'm in my own basement, thanks.
I know, but you're not in your mom's basement. So
no, I'm in my own basement. But no, that's exactly it. You don't at a player for fantasy team because them winning you fantasy championships is not their fucking job. Their job is to go out there, perform, and do what the team asks of them. Their commitment is to the team. It's to winning football games. It is not to the guy that thinks he's funny using the same "show me your TDs" team name every year or whatever bad pun gets thrown in there. Actually, I love Ronnie a lot, but that's just the first thing that came to mind.
2 cups, one girly.
Yeah, 2 cups, one girly, shit like that. And that's not where it belongs. So I completely get players that hate fantasy Twitter. I don't hold it against them at all.
Oh, no. But it's when you call them out. It's when you effectively do what the Cardinals did last year with Matthew Berry. If you're going to throw shit back at us, you got to be prepared to take it and be prepared to, you got to show up.
Yeah, exactly.
If he went out and had a fantastic game, no one would really fucking care. You just laugh about it.
Yeah.
You go out and throw out a couple duds and then to keep doubling down on it. It's just
terrible.
It was fun. It
was fun.
It's fun.
Yep. Comeback player of the year, 2020. Fantasy aside, this is Alex Smith. This is hands down Alex Smith.
Yeah, he should. I agree with Matthew Berry that this category should be in the Alex Smith comeback player of the year, because what he came back from, and this is also shout out to Teddy Bridgewater from a few years back, what he came back from.
Mm-hmm.
Similar injury, Smith was a little bit more dire. It's incredible, and then to make the playoffs on top of it,
Yeah,
It's
and
insane.
never mind how, just
Yeah.
to make the playoffs and to fall back into that. Alex Smith should retire after the season. He's got nothing left to prove. The Redskins, wow, I did it.
I know.
I went all season without doing it, and I did
I
it.
know. Oh,
I caught it before they finished it, though. At least the
she said.
Washington football team, has an out on Alex Smith after the season on his contract. I believe it was either no dead cap or it was some absurd amount of savings. So Alex Smith should retire, but what he came back from is absolutely incredible. There's not a lot of human beings on this planet that would have the ability or the want to rehab. They save 60 some odd million by cutting him in the offseason. They're cutting him.
Who knows if he does?
Yeah.
Washington is in need of a franchise quarterback, and Alex Smith is one of the best bridge that can not only help the quarterback of the future get better, as we saw with Patrick Mahomes, but also make your team competitive and keep the locker room.
They may restructure.
Better.
They may pick somebody up in free agency, but I find it hard pressed to think that with $71 million remaining on his deal and only 10.8 in dead cap, that they keep him on this deal.
Yeah. Hopefully they restructure.
Maybe.
Or
he's also going to be
let him
37 years old going into next season too. So
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, again, I would hate to see him get re-injured or something like that after what he did to come back.
I agree.
If you're the Washington football team, you're looking for you're looking for a development quarterback in the draft, and then you're looking for a journeyman guy. Guess what? There's gonna be journeyman quarterbacks available.
There always is.
There always is. Sign Tyrod Taylor. Seems to be a good recipe for whoever's starting behind him to come in and do well.
Yeah. Oh shit.
Coach of the year. So you put down what I had originally put down. I started with Ron Rivera, and then I went to Brian Flores, and this is really a toss-up to me. The reason I pivoted from Rivera is because even though you won your division, you are still under a 500 team. If you're in any division other than the NFC East, we're likely not having that conversation.
Yep.
For Brian Flores, the Dolphins were a team that we expected to be 2 to 3 years off of competing for a playoff spot. We knew they had pieces. We knew about the Devontae Parker breakout. What he's done with that defense has been absolutely incredible. He has created a defense that is much better than the sum of its parts. The offense found ways to win games. His handling of, Tua versus Fitzpatrick and the way he used them at first was questionable, but then his explanation for it was actually kind of brilliant in a completely fresh way of looking at the game of football. Like, Tua's electric, and he has a better chance to get us into a lead, but Fitzpatrick's a veteran, and if we're behind or we need to maintain a lead, then he's who we want to bring in to do that, the closer, if you will. It was a unique and fresh way of looking at the quarterback position, regardless of what you think about it with Tua's development or not. For teams bought in, which is another sign of a good coach, and these guys clearly were, then there's nothing wrong with doing it that way. So, for me, Brian Flores leading the Dolphins to 10-5 is my coach of the year.
Yeah, I have no issue with this. I'm still in the firm camp that you got to let Tua work through this. And I think they would have. They would have helped. They would have wanted him to work through whatever issues and struggles he had. If this wasn't a playoff team, this team was obviously fighting for a playoff spot for majority of the season.
Near playoff team.
It definitely made sense. It came down to week 17, which they completely mishandled and completely fucked up for whatever reason, which will probably end up losing him the actual award for the NFL. It'll likely go to an honorable mention to get there. But mine was Ron Rivera, and a lot of it has to do with not only what he had to work with his quarterback situation and then eventually getting Alex Smith back onto the field and getting hurt again. It was the fact that he dealt with skin cancer throughout the entire part of this. And for Washington battling a team, a lot like Miami, that was so far behind from a playoff spot, not even having a franchise quarterback on the roster, Rivera handled everything, I think, about as well as you could have asked for. And I don't know how many coaches could have gotten 6 wins, a playoff spot or not, out of this. Because for as much as we shit on the NFC East, it was competitive from week 1.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. Now, obviously, I agree with you. 6 wins should not get you, and like it's more so what the coach had to overcome to get to this point, not what the team had eventually achieved. Again, I don't think these 2 guys will be the actual pick. The guy that we'll talk about here in a second will, in my opinion, will probably get it. But these guys, I think, deserve it more for their own reasons than just having the best record in football. And that honorable mention will go to Matt LaFleur, obviously Green Bay Packers, best record in football. I think the second best record in football or best record in football. No, it was second best, I believe. Wrapped up their division, played well. Obviously, we can talk about their draft decisions. Rodgers likely the MVP of this, and the relationship has really blossomed into something.
And that's exactly it.
Fan.
Yep, it's the relationship that's blossomed. It's the fact that he had a potentially explosive situation on his hands that was managed and turned into a positive. He's gotten great work out of Alan Lazard, still good work out of Aaron Jones. A.J. Dillon's looked good. Robert Tonyan came along nicely. Offense firing on all cylinders. A defense that, especially against the run, has played a little bit better as they approach the playoffs. And more importantly, I'm a big listener of the Pat McAfee show. Rodgers has a weekly spot on there, but he also rotates a lot of Packers players in because of that. So, Bob Tunion's been there. Bakhtiari's been on. Lazard's been on. Aaron Jones. And every one of those guys, just listening to them talk, it sounds like they're having a freaking blast playing football. So Matt LaFleur is going to find himself in the opposite situation of what the Eagles are in, which is people are going to want to come play for you.
And as fans of teams that hate the Packers, that are not the Packers, that play against the Packers in the division,
it sucks because
it pains us to have to say this.
It sucks because if they're in the AFC West, for example, I'm a fan. I'm rooting for them.
Yeah.
But they're the fucking Packers.
But they're the fucking Packers. So
yeah.
Shout out to DJ Primo, who I'm sure is listening to the show, just waiting for this moment for us to talk about Matt LaFleur and positive notes about Aaron Rodgers.
Yep. Overall fantasy player of the year, Derrick Henry, consensus. Incredible.
2,000 yards rushing, 250 odd rushing yards in week 17 to get to 2,000. The man is just built differently. He is going to be a true unicorn of the analytical profile and how to handle running backs. A lot of the same way that Josh Allen is a unicorn to his own profile. Derrick Henry is going to be, it's one of those situations where you don't even want to trade him because the offense is literally built to feature him. And as long as he stays healthy and he can stay who he is, he's going to be a fucking beast for years to come.
Yeah.
Continue to be.
Nope, I agree. Honorable mention Devontae Adams, who also had an incredible season. I mean, ton of target volume in Green Bay. Rodgers bounce back season after 2 down years. Devontae Adams, biggest beneficiary of that.
18 touchdowns, I believe he had.
Yeah.
18 touchdowns.
Incredible number.
Yeah, he finished as the wide receiver 1 because of said touchdown volume. And something that we'll probably talk about as a regression, but the dude's been over 10 touchdowns for like 3 years straight, so 4 years. So Adams 10+ touchdowns go hand in hand.
Indeed.
Until he gets hurt or something happens, but he played 14 games. He played 2 less games than most of these guys ahead of him.
And still
18 touchdowns. That's
yeah, and still the wide receiver 1.
And still finishes. That's nuts.
All right, let's go ahead and look at the Super Wild Card weekend. Let's start it off with the Colts and the Bills. This line has changed since yesterday. It's down to 6.5-point favorites for the Buffalo Bills, as a lot of money was going to the Colts. Over/under in this one's 51.5. Dan, how do you see these two teams matching up? Whose court are you in? Any particular bet, over, under, spread, or money line that you like here?
If the line can get to 5.5 for whatever reason, I'm taking the Bills. 6.5 feels like a lot. That's a touchdown plus extra point. We know extra points are not guaranteed. I like the over in this. Both defenses tend to struggle against above average or better offenses.
My biggest takeaway from here as to why a lot of the money was going to the Colts is essentially that at +7, it's the way these two teams match up. The Bills have given up. I forget what the stat was. It was something like 3 of their double-digit losses came to teams that had an incredible running game. It was something like, I'm going to look it up real quick. It was something like Baltimore, Cleveland, and
That is the Cardinals, which was the last second.
Yeah. Hold on.
Last second loss.
Let me find this real quick. Nope, I did it on Teams. No, I didn't. Yes, I did. Anyway, regardless, it's the way these two teams match up. Jonathan Taylor against the Bills' run defense that has been shredded by the running game. And then, for the Bills, they don't have a strong running game, which is where the Colts are weak. So, ultimately speaking, I'm babbling. I wish I remembered that fucking stat now.
It's all right.
I think I had it backwards. I think it was the Colts had been shredded by Tennessee, Cleveland, and Baltimore. And Buffalo doesn't necessarily have a strong running game. Those are the games the Colts lost by more than a touchdown, was against teams with an incredible running game, because that's how you attack Indy. I remembered it now. Okay. They lost to Baltimore, Cleveland, Tennessee by more than a touchdown, essentially. And they got shredded through the run. The Bills aren't going to shred you through the run. They're going to have to do it through the air. And the Colts, in a lot of ways, tend to win ugly. The Bills gave up 8 games of more than 100 yards rushing to a team. And that's gotten a lot better as the season's worn on. But, with Jonathan Taylor and the running game being the way that the Colts tend to score points, more so than consistent passing game, it was the way that they matched up. I think that made it an attractive bet towards the Colts. As it is, I see the Bills winning. I do like 5.5 or anything below 6 more than I like 6.5, because that's also 2 field goals. It doesn't get it done, for example. Yeah, so exactly. I like 5.5 a lot more. You could tease it down. I definitely like the over. But the way these two teams match up, I think the Bills take this one home.
Yeah, Bills should win this handily. At least in terms of,
All right, second game on Saturday is Rams and Seahawks. These two teams split the regular season series, with the Seahawks taking the game where Jared Goff broke his thumb, the Rams taking the game earlier in the season. Seahawks are favored by 4, plus 164 odds to the Ram. Over-under, and this one's only 42.5.
This is probably a game that I'm just picking. I did a full money line parlay of all the teams that I think will win. Sans the Browns, the Steelers pick. That's more of a honorable pick for my grandpa. But Seahawks should win this game. 4 points feels like a lot for both these teams that have played each other tight for the majority of the year. Rams are getting healthy. So I do like the +4 side. If I'm betting the spread, I'm betting the Rams +4. Not taking the spread there, because I think Seattle will still win this game. I just think this game is going to be really, really close. As for the over/under, I think 42.5 can be achieved. If you think these teams are going to play each other tight, both offenses are obviously good enough to put up points when push comes to shove.
This may also go up when Goff is confirmed playing too, and Kupp is confirmed back.
That's true too. So if you like the over, get it in now. Obviously, there's a risk if these guys can't go, being that it's playoffs. So it's hard for me to see, outside of obviously COVID, that these guys aren't going to try to battle it out on the field and play.
Yep. I actually like the Rams money line here at +164. I think that this is a matchup that favors the Rams. I think that Jalen Ramsey on DK Metcalf is exactly what you want. I think that the Rams secondary has played very well. I think that the pass rush, the Rams have found something in Leonard Floyd that the Bears couldn't unlock, with Aaron Donald wrecking games and Russell Wilson really struggling the last couple weeks. I think that has the potential to be a difference. And if the Rams offense is on and they can get the running game going, either likely through Cam Akers, I think the Rams have a real shot at it pulling this one out. So I like the Rams money line in this one at plus 164. I think that the way these two teams match up favors the Rams. And I think that what we saw the last time they faced was more of a result of Goff being injured than it was anything Seattle really did. I think it was ugly.
Yeah, if there's going to be a game that I think the away team pulls off and wins, it's probably Rams and Seahawks if all players are healthy.
Yep. All right, night camp, Tampa Bay at Washington. Bucks heavily favored. 8.5 points, negative 420 odds. Over/unders 45.
Spread's gone up. Opened at 7.5. It's gone up a point since the end of the Sunday night game. I can see this. This is likely due to the Smith news. Potentially, he may not play, and Bucks are going to always be favored in this. I think spread wise, if it gets higher than the double digits, I might take the football team here.
Yeah.
Heavy, great pass rush that Washington puts forth, and they're going to play their fucking hearts out. You're going to see a lot of stats thrown around of the last two teams that made the playoffs with below 500 records have both won their playoff games. That's going to end Saturday night, but I think they're going to play their fucking asses off and keep this game close.
Yeah.
I don't like the point total that much. It's going to be whether or not Washington can actually score enough points to push it over, and that I'm not so certain of.
Yeah, Tampa Bay's put a lot of work into the offensive line. I'd expect a lot of Gronk and Brait staying in the block to help out with that. It really comes down to firepower. Part of that's going to be, is Mike Evans healthy? But even if he isn't, we saw Antonio Brown completely take over that role. So
him and Godwin had great games.
They did. I don't think that Washington is good enough in the secondary, despite how good their pass rush is, to be able to snuff out Tampa Bay's passing attack. I think that Tampa Bay is not a team that has to work deep. They have Chris Godwin. They have Antonio Brown. They can absolutely work intermediate if they need to. And I think that Tampa Bay does pull this one out. Would have liked it a lot more at 7.5, 8.5. I think you're still fine. I also agree with you, Dan. Washington's going to play their ass off. They're not going to let them have anything easy. And I think if this goes to double digits, that you do flip to the football team on the spread. But I've got Tampa Bay taking this one ultimately.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, Baltimore and Tennessee, rematch from last year. Baltimore's favored by 3. Tennessee's plus 152. Over-unders 54.5 in this game. Baltimore get revenge. Does Tennessee pull it off again? This is the toughest one to predict for me.
I don't. What shocks me is that Tennessee's not favored at home.
Yeah.
And this is going to be, I think, the most popular underdog bet. I say that in quotes because I don't think Tennessee should be the underdogs in this game. I definitely agree that this should be more of a pick'em game, but Tennessee minus 1.5, Tennessee minus 2 would probably be more where I would stick with. So with that said, if you don't think they're going to win, when the game's going to be close, I think even plus 3 is probably a good call. Tennessee has taken the last couple games against Baltimore. No, Baltimore beat them, I think. I don't know if they beat them this year or not, but Tennessee matches up well. Baltimore has looked better as of late. Tennessee has struggled to put away teams. Looking at Houston this past week, over-under should be crushed. Both defenses have not lived up to what we potentially were up to expect of them this week. I fully expect both running games to go off, and I fully expect the over to be pushed. I probably would avoid trying to pick a winner and just bet the points.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on betting the points. Plus 100 odds to Tennessee being plus 3, by the way.
Yeah, that's really
which
good.
Is really good odds for something I don't think happens. As far as matchups, Tennessee has a lot of offensive firepower, And the Ravens are going to have to lock that down if they want to have a chance. They're going to have to lock down Derrick Henry, and they're going to have to lock down that passing game if they want to have a chance, because I don't think that Tennessee's offense can keep, or that Baltimore's offense can keep up with the multifaceted attack that Tennessee has.
And they're going to have to try to make them one-dimensional, but at a point when they're not down double digits. Last year, they kind of gave another blueprint to how you can stop Baltimore, and that's by getting up early and forcing turnovers early to get up early that way.
Yeah.
Both teams are going to have to probably play a little out of their comfort zone to get this done. This should be the most exciting game. In my opinion, the most exciting game.
No, I'm with you. I think
weekend.
that this one, Rams, Seahawks, Colts, Bills, all be good, but this should be the most exciting one for sure.
Mm-hmm.
What should be one of the least exciting games, Bears, Saints, and I said that as a Bears fan. Saints favored by 9.5 in this one. Bears plus 385. Over or under is 47.5. I don't know what path the Bears have to winning this, given the way the defensive scheme has been called over even the games they were winning. I don't know. Like, Devontae Adams shredded them over the middle because they were insistent in playing linebackers covering friggin' Devontae Adams or Valdez-Scantling down the middle of the field and playing cover 2 shell. And there's no way that matches up with Michael Thomas and working in the middle of the field. He was expected to be back. And then, Kamara and Murray, I fully believe they can contain that. You're not going to stop it. I definitely think it can be contained. It's really the passing game here that concerns me with the Saints against the Bears, and I think that the Saints just cakewalk this one. I think 9.5 is fine.
Yeah, it's more or less, can the Bears actually keep? I mean, they kept up with Green Bay
for a little bit.
Majority of part of last, for what, just over 3 quarters worth, and then everything kind of shat the bed, and then they lose by double-digit points. That could end up being the same case against the Saints. And they don't have the firepower to keep up with an offense that if it gets hot or gets going early, that they're going to be able to try to outscore. Defense is going to have to make a couple stops, key stops.
You're going to have to make some plays.
And they're going to have to force the Saints out of their comfort zone or make them one-dimensional and then let the defense dictate that. So I don't see it. This was the worst draw the Bears could have had besides the Packers, and I don't know if they had any way of getting Seattle. So
they could have. Yeah, they did have a way of getting Seattle. It would have been if they won and Arizona beat the Rams.
Okay.
Every team would have been 9-7, and the Bears held tiebreakers over both of them.
Okay.
So they had a way, but they were never going to beat Green Bay.
Yeah.
Cleveland and Pittsburgh. So this is another one that I think screams upset to me. Browns plus 225 odds, 6-point spread. And the way Pittsburgh got his offense is completely sputtered, and the way the defense is falling apart in the absence of, of some of their key pieces. I think the Browns can just flat out pull this one out, and I definitely think they can cover 6.
So maybe we should have thrown this in the news section, but
yeah, probably would have been.
The entire Browns offensive coaching staff is on the COVID reserve list.
So it is.
I know
Tuesday.
That
the game
tested positive.
It is Tuesday. They do have until Sunday, and if it's close contact tracing, that's only a 4-day wait.
Which is great. You're still missing the majority of your important coaches during practice. The line opened up, I think, at 5. I got the Browns. I did an early money line bet on them at 172, plus 172. I don't know if the Browns will win. I made this bet strictly because of my grandpa. Pittsburgh has looked like dog shit. Outside of their game against the Colts, which the Colts just pissed away due to poor coaching and poor play calling. Pittsburgh has no means of winning this game, but the Browns just may not have enough in it. We saw them lose to New York when they lost just the receiving core. And if they're underprepared for this, it could look ugly. If everything remained the same and nothing was wrong in terms of COVID for this team, I'd be with you 1,000%. And I hope so. Like I said, I have the bet, add that line. I hope so. So I do think Pittsburgh wins this. I'm not betting the spread. It depends what type of offense Pittsburgh puts out there. The fact that Pittsburgh wants to create packages for Josh fucking Dobbs. I'm sure Matt Hicks is probably doing jumping jacks here and that. So this game's going to be close. I still think Cleveland +6 probably is the right call if you're going to bet the spread. Over under, I'm staying away from because I don't know how the offenses are. I don't have an idea how the offenses are going to look coming out. Ask me about that on like Saturday or something.
Okay. So I figured out why I can never bet when we're on a call, by the way.
What's that?
See, Zoom is location spoofing software.
That's odd.
Yeah, a little bit. I'm trying to bet a 5-team parlay here. 7 bet parlay, apparently. The hell did I bet twice? There's only 6 games. Anyway, that's not something I need to figure out. Oh, yeah, I bet straights and then the parlay. Okay. 16 parlay plus the straight bets. Got it. Yeah, that's the show. So
That's the show.
Yep, that's the show. Thank you guys for tuning in. I lied earlier when I said the audio problems wouldn't just be on the YouTube recording. I forgot to start the audio recording, so I now have to derive the audio recording from the YouTube recording.
Oh boy.
So, or you know what? Fuck it. Fuelies, YouTube only special. Why not?
Why not?
Why not? It ain't gonna hurt us. It's not like we get paid.
Nope.
All right. So there you go. Fuelies YouTube only special. Awesome. Congratulations. You saw it here first. We'll be back next week. We'll probably start looking at the dynasty classes. We'll figure out when next week exactly here in a little bit. Thank you guys for tuning in. Catch you next time.
See ya.